Hey everybody, welcome back to the vlog. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. I really appreciate all of you being here. So today we want to talk about Olympus. Just a couple of hours ago, we got the announcement of the Olympus E-M1X. And this thing looks like a beast, right? It looks like one of my 1Ds or maybe even Nikon D5. It is big, it's massive. I want to talk to you guys about it and ask the question, is this right for you? Who is it right for? Now, before I start out, there's a ton of rain going on. We're going through like this massive storm down here in South Florida. So bear with me if you hear rain and thunder and maybe the lights go out, I don't know, but we'll see. We're going to try to get through it. Anyways, I want to go through the specs like I always do, and then get into my thoughts about how this camera works or how it doesn't work and who it's for and who's it not for and this type of thing. And I want to get your opinion after all this is said and done also. Now let's start out with, it is a micro four thirds camera, all right? It's not an APS-C, it's not a full frame, it's not a medium format, it is micro four thirds. You know how I feel about them, so let's just put that out of your mind and let's just talk about the camera, just spec to see how it fares, so to speak. So let's go ahead and look at some of these specs. So starting out, it has a 20 megapixel live MOS micro four thirds sensor. It also has dual true pick is what they call it, 2 processors built into it. Also, it has an integrated vertical grip. So as you can see, the camera itself is large. You cannot take that grip off. It's built in, just like a 1D or, like I said, a Nikon D5. Next, it has dual batteries. Now, for a professional camera, that's what we want to see. Dual batteries. It should be able to shoot all the way up to like 870 shots or something like that, which is really quite nice. Also, it has dual card slots. Now, we know that a lot of pros want dual card slots so that we have redundancy. We don't have to worry about losing anything. And dual card slots are here, and they're 2 UHS 2 SD card slots. I like that better than when we see card slots that are dual, but then there's like one CF and one SD or one SD and one XQD, and just make them the same. That's my opinion. Anyway, so you do have 2 UHS 2 SD card slots in it. Now, autofocus, 121 points of cross-type autofocus. Now, this is really nice. You have your contrast detection as well as your phase detection. So tracking should be really, really exceptional, especially on that little sensor. Remember, micro four thirds. Now, next is the viewfinder. It has 2.3 million dot LCD. Now, this is a LCD viewfinder, not an OLED viewfinder. Why they would put old tech in here, I don't know, but that's what they have. Next is that back panel, and it does have what a lot of folks are looking for, a 3-inch fully articulated back panel. So you can flip it to the side, up, down, rotate it forward. So if you're videoing yourself, you will be able to see yourself in that back panel, which is really great, just like this 80D does and a lot of Canon cameras do also. Next comes the capturing of video. It does DCI 4K at 24 frames per second or UHD, which is your Ultra HD, at 30 frames per second at 4K. And if you're shooting at regular HD, 1080p, you're going to be able to go all the way up to 120 frames per second so that you get that ultra slow-mo, which is really great. Also, it has a 5-axis image stabilization built into it on sensor, as well as being able to stabilize up to 7.5 stops. Now, that is a lot of stops of image stabilization. That's, of course, if you use their specialty glass on it, but that is a lot of stabilization. You should be able to hand hold it for 10 seconds. Or who knows what, but a lot. Anyways, as far as your shooting, it will do 15 frames per second. That's on the shutter. If you're shooting electronic shutter, you can get all the way up to, I think, 60 frames per second. Let's just call it a lot, more than you'll ever use. The ISO will only go up to 25,600, which is low in my personal opinion, especially for a current camera as of today. Now that they're going up to 100,000 plus. Also, what it has is a couple of novelty modes to me. One of them is called a tripod high-res mode, whereas if you put the thing on the tripod, you take your shots, it'll take like 8 shots and then stitch them together and move the sensor around and call it like 50 megapixels. Yeah, so, but they also have one called a Pro Capture mode. Now, this is very like akin to what Panasonic has done in the past, whereas if you go to take the picture and you push down halfway to lock your focus, for example, to grab focus, it will immediately start taking images, right? in the back end. So it'll take up to 35 photos before you actually fully depress that shutter release, which is kind of cool, I suppose, if you miss stuff regularly because you're slow at the finger or something like that. I don't know. But once again, I think it's a novelty. Does it have some use? I guess so. I don't know. But for me, I really couldn't use that, especially on a pro camera. I don't know. Anyways, as far as weather sealing, it has their IPX1 weather sealing. So basically, you can sit it out there in the storm that's going on outside right now and not have to worry about it. Weather sealing is really great. The images that I saw on their website, even this one you can see here with the dual card slots, you can really see that big, thick rubber gasket all the way around there. That is really good. So you know weather sealing is really nice on this camera, especially if you're going to be shooting somewhere that's going to be maybe really cold or a ton of rain or whatever the case might be. Obviously not going to submerge it in water, but still, if you're out in the elements, you shouldn't have a problem. And finally, you have USB charging on there. So let me start out by saying I was not one of the privileged ones to be able to test drive this camera. They didn't ask me. Maybe they didn't want my opinion. I don't know. Maybe I'm not big enough yet. I don't know. But whatever the case is, I didn't get to do a hands-on on this camera. But this morning, after those NDAs were lifted, let's call it their non-disclosure agreements that everyone's had that had this camera, there's been a ton of photos and videos and all kinds of stuff out there. So I reviewed a lot of these photos and videos and just to see what they look like. And my first impression on these images are just, let's just say on the video side, the video that I saw was like okay, all right? But it wasn't really cinematic, like what you would normally see out of a full-frame DSLR or a full-frame mirrorless equivalent, let's call it, because you don't have that just shallow depth of field, that bokeh that you'd see on a full frame, right? So it looks very amateuresque, I guess. So I didn't really like that very much. Also, what I saw with this video is that the video was kind of jello-y. Whenever they turned on this 5-axis image stabilization and the other stabilization and all the stabilization, it just got really jello, all right? And this is something that we see a lot with mirrorless cameras, that jello effect, and even some that aren't, like DSLRs, like the old 7Ds. When you move quickly, you would get that jello effect. Here, you're getting a jello effect even when things aren't moving too much. I really didn't like that at all, to be completely honest with you. Now, the photos that I saw were good, let's call it, at best. The reason I say that is as soon as they started going up in ISO 4000, 5000, 6400, the grain was really not good. And some of these images I saw in perfect daylight, and when you zoom in, you can literally see all the dots, all that grain. The grain look okay, but there's grain. And at 6400, for example, I mean, there's a lot of cameras out there, even APS-C, like a Fujifilm X-T3, really handles 6400 much better than this does. And it's at half the price. So I don't know what they need to do with, maybe it's something internal, maybe they just can't pull anything out of this Micro Four Thirds, basically what they're getting already. I don't know what that is. Maybe it's a firmware update, I don't know. But what I saw as far as the grain was really not good in, let's not even call it high ISO, medium ISO, 4000, 5000, 6000. Yeah. So that really didn't feel very nice to me. Now, the other thing that I really didn't like here is that the camera itself immediately comes with that integrated battery grip. Now, that's good for a professional camera, and that's what they're going for with this camera. They're going for the professionals. The problem is it's Micro Four Thirds. That being said, it's the same size as like a 1DX or a Nikon D5 or maybe even a Nikon Z7 or a Canon EOS R or even a Sony A9 with a battery grip on it. But at least those you can take the battery grip off if you need to go smaller. Here you can't. So all of the benefits of having a Micro Four Thirds is really gone with this camera. It's big, it's huge. You know, it's a massive size camera. So that all being said, there's a lot of good features here that we discussed in the spec list, but there's a lot of negative that's really hard to see past. Now, for me, it kind of goes back to what I was saying so many videos ago and over, that Micro Four Thirds are simply going away the dinosaur. Now, is Micro Four Thirds still a viable system? Yes. Are they going away? I do think that they will, but it's more amateuresque. All right. I don't see it as a professional system. I just simply don't. Now, Panasonic has done amazing work with their GH5S, and a lot of pros are using it for video. But this camera is definitely not that camera. I don't see pros using it. Why? $3,000, guys. Remember we were talking about in the last video and value and how the sea is just red in blood when it comes to these mirrorless wars going on, and the competition is just so great. All right? $3,000 for this camera. No one is going to buy it. In my personal opinion, I don't see it. There's so many better values for what you're getting out there for some half the cost. I mean, I would have to say even the Fujifilm, the X-T3 is probably a better choice in 95% of the circumstances here, minus the weather sealing and a couple other things. Of course, you have your IBIS, which it doesn't. But in most cases, it's probably going to be enough, and it's like $1,500, $1,600. It's not $3,000, all right? I really don't understand it. In my opinion, guys, kind of to come full circle, I really do think Olympus is going to have to decide what path they take. Are they going to take the path that Panasonic has and say, yes, we have an amazing Micro Four Thirds, but we need to go down the full frame path because a lot of people want it? Are they going to do that? Are they going to stick with a camera that is going to be amateuresque, that is going to be smaller and, let's say, geared towards the travel community, But coming out with something that is touted as a professional camera with all of the whistles and bells at $3,000, that to me just doesn't fit that bill. It really doesn't. It's like I showed in the last video, the kid hammering the square peg in the round hole. I feel like that's what Olympus has done here. So that's my personal opinion. I want to know what your thoughts are. You know where I stand. So in the comment area, put everything that you think that I missed, anything that I got right, as always, anything that I got wrong, whatever the case might be. I want to know what you think and what is your use case. What would you use this camera for, if anything, right? If you're a Micro Four Thirds guy, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, my apologies to you, but this is just my feelings and my thoughts. So please take it all with a grain of salt. I'm only some guy here behind the camera. Anyways, that's it, guys. As always, if you enjoy my content, please throw me a big thumbs up. That would be stellar. And don't forget to smash that subscribe button so you get all my content when it becomes available, and click the bell icon so when it is available, you will be notified of it. And finally, head over to my website, JCristina.com, where you can find all the photography tools that I've invented for you and me over the years. And hopefully there's something there that you might like. And if there is, please pick it up and support me. That's it. I'm out of here for yet another vlog. We'll see you in the next one. Happy shooting, guys. Take care.